Hi, everyone. First of all, a huge thanks to Harsha for inviting all of us to be here today. I swear, Harsha never fails to impress with all these conferences she hosts every year. I just don't know how she does it. So let's talk more about us. So my name is Vivek James. I used to be co-president of the Wharton Undergraduate Entrepreneurship Club. Fascinating club. It was an opportunity of my lifetime. But today's not about me. It's about these wonderful three panelists we have right over here. And they are some of Penn's most talented club leaders. And you'll see this for yourself in a few seconds. So, first of all, let's introduce ourselves. What are your names? What year are you? And maybe what's a fun fact? I think Audrey is right below me. So, Audrey, you want to kick things off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Audrey Knoll. I'm a current senior at Wharton studying finance and business analytics. And my fun fact is during the presentation that you guys might have seen a few hours earlier, I recorded it when I was studying abroad in France in a fully immersive experience. So, great experience. Really got to travel a lot, learn a lot about other cultures, and experience the world for myself.
How about Caylen? You want to go next?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Caylen David, and I'm a senior at in the College of Arts and Sciences at Penn, studying cinema and media studies and economics. I'm the president of the Wharton Undergraduate Media and Entertainment Club. And a fun fact about myself is, in addition to film and TV, I really love cats, and my family fosters cats. And dare I say that my parents have 11 of them.
That is pretty insane. I don't think I could maintain 11 cats. Eddie, how about you? And please don't tell me you have 11 cats.
I no, I do not. We're a dog family. But anyways, my name's Eddie. I'm a junior. I'm in a double degree between international business and international studies at Penn. And a fun fact about me is that, except for the fact that okay, now we have dogs, which I already said, I started my own fashion brand 2 years ago when I was a freshman at Penn.
Wow, that is fascinating. You have your own fashion brand, and that's also something that I probably could never do. Um, but besides that, let's dive right in. What clubs are all of you in? And what's a one sentence pitch that you would give to someone who wants to join your club? We have a lot of viewers today. Let's try to convince them to join your club. Eddie, how about we start with you this time?
Yeah, I'm the president of the Wharton Retail Club. So the club has to do with anything regarding retail, from fashion to retail goods such as coffee and any retail product, and offers services from speaker events to corporate sponsorships to consulting and much, much more.
All right, let's do this from now. Do you want to popcorn it to Audrey?
All right, sounds good. So I am part of MUSE, which is Penn's premier undergraduate marketing club. We are also one of the top 3 marketing clubs in the country out of over 350 clubs and have been so since 2014. We have 11 different committees that do truly anything. So even if you're not interested in marketing, if you're interested in marketing yourself or your ideas, MUSE is a great way to learn and grow and just see what marketing can do in the business world that interests you. I guess over to Caylen.
Yeah, okay, that leaves me. So, yeah, I'm the president of the Wharton Undergrad Media and Entertainment Club, and we're the leading resource on Penn's campus to sort of bridge the gap that exists at the university for students who want to break into the entertainment industry. And we mainly do this with speaker events and professional development sessions. So we have 5 different committees across our club that host a variety of different events in film, television, music, and other sort of sectors of entertainment. And our most recent event was with Jason Kylar, who is one of the founding CEOs of Hulu.
Whoa, that is pretty crazy. You got one of the founding CEOs of Hulu to host an event. That is all right. Again, something I can never do. So shout out to Caylen. But that does sound like a bit of a time commitment. Like 5 different committees. You have to host all these speaker events. How can you manage your time that way? Like you also have to, you have tests, homework to worry about. Also a social life. We are in university after all. Well, you guys are, not me. So how are you able to manage your time?
I would say that I put a lot of trust in my board members being sort of self-starters and being able to set expectations for the type of work that I'd like to see get done. So I feel like leadership and drive is sort of like a trickle effect, so that if the person running everything doesn't really have a lot of drive and doesn't have the high standards, then that'll kind of carry through and slip through the cracks, and that'll lead to other people who are involved in leaderships to kind of follow that example. Like I'm kind of a strong proponent of leading by example, so I feel like um, having a team that sort of uplifts each other and is able to spread out the work to ensure everything gets done is, I think, really important.
Audrey, what's your take on this? Like, how are you able to manage your time as well amidst everything Muse does?
Yeah, MUSE actually has 12 committees, so it's very hectic to try and run everything with 19 board members. And the way we get it done is we really do have a lot of faith in our VPs. All of our VPs have to be elected by all of the past board, which means everyone who's ever been in a leadership position in MUSE trusts these new people. We help kind of get them to grow into their leadership positions. And there are days where probably shouldn't be, but I'll be texting, trying to answer any MUSE questions someone throws at me on the way to class. Not in class, I try to be a good student. But any other time, I really do like to be there for my MUSE VPs. But I think, sort of to what Caylen said, you need to trust the people you work with. And while sometimes these people might be newer or younger, really being there with them to help them solve the problems instead of solving it for them is beneficial to them, and obviously saves me some time in the process. So definitely think delegation is important. And then I'm not very good at this, but I try and have times where I'm here for me and not for MUSE, but it's a little bit difficult, especially currently, since we are going through our board transition. So we'll have new presidents and VPs, and electing everyone does take a lot of time, but it's worth it for the good of the club in the future.
Oh man, I definitely know that. Elections take a ton of time. Eduardo, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have to agree with the other two panelists and the fact that trusting your board members is really important. I know that we have less committees, but there's a very big reach between consulting and events and corporate sponsorship and research that it's impossible to stay on track with everything 100% the whole time. And so being able to have driven people that really want to do the work really makes a difference. And I think trusting them in that and being able to show to them that they do have freedom to do what they want and show their creativity even in these sectors is what both saves me time, but also leads to the best work for the whole club as well, generally.
Wow. So like the message I'm getting is delegate, 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 and make sure you have the right you have the right people for the job. Speaking of like getting the right people for the job, this is something that every manager, every leader has to do in their respective organizations. And I know elections, getting new members is a huge part of club. I feel like the first like 2 months of the school year are just dedicated to getting club members on board. So how do you make sure you get the right people into your club? Like what do you select for? How do you make sure, you're keeping things diverse? What is your takes on, these kinds of club member selections? Eddie, you want to start off?
Yeah, I think, as you were saying, diversity is really important within a board. Just I was looking at ours last week, and we have members from really the whole spectrum of the school. We have people who are engineering to the business school to the college, and within each of these study vastly different things and have vastly different interests. So I think that as a whole brings a lot of creativity to the table, just because you get to have a lot of perspectives. And then when it comes to actual elections, I think Wharton Retail, at least when it started, was smaller than the other clubs. And so there has been both an effort to scale up and so subdivide into more committees, but also make sure to have people who are driven and have people that, from day one have wanted to get to the leadership position, but especially have wanted to improve the club and make it be the best it ever was.
I like that. You got to make sure your club members are ambitious. That's something I've always strived to have. Audrey, how about you go next?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things Muse is trying to do. One is we are trying to start getting rid of names on applications just to even get rid of certain biases, including their school year and what school they're in as well, just to make sure truly clean slate and no implicit biases can be made into the process. So that's one way we are trying to improve our DEI. In terms of finding the right people, it's always so hard. We have hundreds of applicants this semester, and unfortunately, you can't accept everyone because running a 500-person club would just be insane and would be much harder than it already is at 200. And so I think one of the things that we really do try to look for is who's going to be a motivated team player. And in Muse, it's important that someone is dedicated to their specific committee, but we also have committees that host, info sessions, career tracks, panels. We hosted a conference yesterday, actually, as well. Oh, I'm currently frozen. And we have our social events as well in terms of study breaks. So we want to find someone who's not just dedicated to their committee, but is dedicated to Muse as a whole and is going to ideally be a Muse person for life. We have a great alumni network and we do really love bringing them back. And you want to make sure that 10 years or so in the future, they'll come back and want to be surrounded by Muse members, meet up in New York as well. And so one thing we started this semester was our growth and development committee to just teach people more about Muse, but see who's actually really dedicated and motivated. So our members who go to a lot of events, they now have the ability to shadow our different committees, which should hopefully give them a leg up in next semester's recruitment cycle. So we really do want to reward the people who are interested in Muse for Muse, and we know that they're going to be involved in all events possible and stay throughout hopefully their 4 years at Penn and grow into leadership positions in the future as well.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You want to make sure that your club members are absolutely driven. Caylen, would you think the same?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question, especially given I guess the structure of UME. So I'll answer it on the board front and also just on a member front, because in terms of getting new members for the club, what we just really look for people who sort of want that community of, because entertainment is something that's hard to break into. Entertainment is something that's not the most frequently traveled road at a place like Penn. And
Yeah.
first for me, and I kind of am conflicted with sort of the club atmosphere at Wharton at times, because one question that I get a lot is what's your acceptance rate whenever people are wanting to join the club. And in my eyes, this club is really supposed to be a learning resource primarily for people, and in an industry that's already so hard to break into and also just so vague at times. I'm never going to gatekeep someone the opportunity to learn about how they can make themselves the best version of themselves to break into that. So for that reason, we don't cap an acceptance rate for our club. And also we try to tap into, in terms of diversity, in we value diversity in our speakers, and also, excuse me, in our speakers, and also just in kind of the communities that we tap into at Penn for our events. We'll do collaborations with a group that might be a Black visual arts collective, and we'll do collaborative events with the AAPI filmmaking club and stuff like that. And so we try to just make ourselves sort of a hub full of driven people that sort of want to give themselves the most, I guess, different perspectives and different sort of layers to how entertainment works. And then on the board sense is that I always want to find someone who has a vision. Because like I said, if you're not a self-starter, you're not going to be able to brainstorm events, and you're not going to be able to sort of, it's primarily what UME is. It's cultivating community and also just bringing in speakers, many of which were members of UME when they were at Penn, and many of which traveled the same path of ambiguity. So having people that can realize that vision, not only of themselves, but also of the members too. One thing that's always very important for us is getting a really deep dive into what sort of sectors of entertainment makes our members tick. And usually it's film and TV, but maybe it's esports one semester, or maybe it's music one semester. So finding people who are able to not only make the events they want, but also cater it to the needs of the club members is also really important for me.
I really like that point you made, Caylen, because you know your club has not only a responsibility and an obligation to your members, your board members, but also to the wider Penn community. After all, Penn like clubs are a learning experience. You want to educate the community that you're a part of. So, this is definitely I don't this is definitely a tough question, but like what good do you think that your clubs have done for the larger Penn community? Or maybe that's not so tough, actually, given the nature of your clubs. And let's start off with Audrey.
Yeah, of course. So I think with our 11 different committees, we're really able to do so much. So I'll talk about a few of them and how they've really been able to impact Penn. So we have two committees, external and conferences, who bring in top speakers, recruiters for info sessions, career tracks. When I was a sophomore, I found it really hard to find an internship that would accept sophomores because that's not really the case in the finance, banking, truly any business world. And so I wanted to host an info session for freshmen and sophomores for what they could do that summer in order to, whether one just learn something, gain a new skill, have real work experience, whatever it could be, just find those opportunities for them. And so I think that was super helpful. And I did have a lot of underclassmen come up to me and say, thank you, because I had no idea how to find these jobs. And so I think that's one way we're able to help the Penn community. Our other ways are a little bit more social impact and positive. So we are currently working on an app that's going to be available to all Penn students where they can say, oh, I'm going to be at this location. It's like a bucket list of things that they want to do, and they can meet new people along the way. So I think during the pandemic, it's definitely been hard for some people to make new friends. And I know there are some sophomores and juniors who feel like they have missed out on that opportunity just having to be virtual. And so we're hoping that this app is a great way for people to connect with like-minded students who also want to make new friends, learn more about Penn, go on some fun adventures in Philadelphia. And I think Penn can seem really large and scary. And we do really try our best to make sure that everyone, whether they're in MUSE on one of our committees or just on our listserv, has that ability to feel connected to one another and doesn't feel so alone. So we have MUSE buddies just to partner people up with around the commit in other committees, just so you can meet someone else, get a new friend. We help with mentorship as well. And we are definitely open to any other possibilities. If anyone has any recommendations, please ping me, let me know. Happy to try and make them work with MUSE as well. But I think when we are such a large club on campus, and there is sometimes the negative association, as Caylen mentioned, that people have with recruiting for clubs, we really need to try and combat that with making sure everyone in Penn feels welcome to join anything we have, to come to any of our events, whether it be like a boba study break or just to help with mental health during finals, or just a new friend to have. We really want to make sure everyone feels like Penn can be their home.
I gotta say, those are some fantastic ideas. Boba study break. Oh, I wish I'd gone.
It's on the 30th. You're welcome to come.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to take the megabus. But that is fantastic. An app, boba study breaks. That's amazing. Man, I wish I wish I was still going to Penn. Caylen, how about you? Let's talk more about the impact that your club has.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been great to see. I've been involved with the club since my sophomore fall. And even just like being involved as a general member and then being in a different board position and now being president, it's been very rewarding kind of seeing the Penn entertainment community grow. And it's been even more rewarding seeing how much that UME has increasingly been intertwined with that. Because one thing that I kind of noticed when I went into the role was how there's so many different clubs that all sort of serve the same purpose. And there's all these clubs. There's the Undergrad Media and Entertainment Club, there's Penn Film Society, there's filmmaking clubs, and they're all sort of doing a lot of similar events, and they all sort of serve the same audience, but they're doing a lot of stuff like in conflict. And I figured that like UME should be sort of the leading resource that unites all these places and like uplifts all events that are happening within that scene. And there's people who are on my board currently that said that they considered doing a career pivot, and they have chosen to do a career pivot because of a speaker event that they went to that they really resonated with. And I think as UME has gotten more involved with other student clubs and also some of the administration at Penn, it's kind of opened us up to more opportunities that have made more like tangible difference. For example, like Friday, we just did a panel with career services, and that was all about a deep dive on job searching and entertainment and kind of trying to break the ambiguity that exists in a lot of it. And a lot of our events are like with speakers and more pre-professional, but we'll also do events where it's just like movie nights and PowerPoint nights and stuff like, or in trivia and stuff like that, to just kind of just cultivate more of like a grounded community. But I'm also really happy to say that UME has been involved in a lot of stuff that is now going to be on a very much wider scale. Like something that I've been working on sort of in the background that we're now bringing UME into is something that's called the Bifocal Film Festival. And UME is one of the co-organizers of it. And it's going to be a global film festival completely run by students for students that's seeking to like sort of uplift student voices both at Penn and abroad across the globe. So that's kind of our next main initiative. And that'll really, I think, be able to bring a lot of the community that we cultivate around stories and around entertainment and take it on a wider scale. And just in terms of that's kind of looking forward in the future. The other, I think, proudest thing that is totally credited to some of my board members who are amazing was something that we called UME Cella. And actually in 2020, it won the Wharton most like innovation award. And it was basically like a 2-day speaker summit, all of like Penn sort of entertainment veterans that, and it was basically like a festival, like every single person, kind of like how this is organized, was on 30-minute time slots, and we were interviewing them, and we had like 200 people in like our most attended speaker slot, and that was really great to see. And we've also been pivoting that to an in-person format too.
Totally love the initiative. And another thing I love about that is, I'm not hating on pre-professionalism, but like, we do have a tendency to become, too pre-professional. And I love how you're like balancing that with, like more casual events like movie nights, that really like, still great to be around your fellow members, but not in such a, I would say, high intensity environment where everybody's vying for the same internship. So really love that. Amazing response, Caylen. Edoardo, I'd love to also get your take on like the impact that Wharton Retail has.
Yeah, so we try to work with the greater Penn community in a couple of different ways. I think from the speaker perspective, all of our speaker events are open to everyone. And so we've had brands coming in just this year to talk about info sessions and recruiting, so options and opportunities outside of Penn. And from that, directly from that meeting, giving special access to applications and priority deadlines that would help them get these opportunities. To then, I think, working on a couple other senses. So we have a research committee which posts newsletters. I think that, especially being at Penn, a lot of what we get news-wise is very focused on specific topics. And so having such a newsletter is something that is a very easy read, is low commitment, but allows you to, if you have any interest in the world of retail, to open your mind to see what is happening around the world, just because I think we tend to be focused too much on certain things. And for those that may have an interest in retail, but may not see themselves as necessarily wanting to just do that, it can just be an easy way for them to check in with the industry and see that in reality, the retail industry is much wider than any of us think. We also have opportunities for speakers and people to come in and sit on our board meetings. We realize that for everyday students, it's very hard to necessarily want to partake in a club and get a board position, just because it's a big time commitment. And naturally, people want to be in other clubs, some do sports, and classes as a whole take up a lot of time. And so having an opportunity for people who may not see themselves as committed to the club yet, to sit into maybe a couple of meetings for special committees or on the board as a whole to see, what the club is about, what they're working with, what it means to work with a client in a consulting project. Another thing we've been doing is helping students with their own project. That came from the idea of when I started my brand and seeing a lot of the challenges I faced that I was able to resolve in some ways just because I'd had experience consulting for outside brands through Wharton Retail. And so giving our experience to fellow students, obviously not at cost, just to be able to try to help them and, see through the potential that we have around us. And then also planning a very big, hopefully the biggest fashion show and art show on campus next fall of lasting a whole day, done through corporate sponsors to then go to charity, but also give students a voice. So those that want to work in retail, both in the organizational, in just walking a show, in photographing a show, in showing off their skills in the arts, an opportunity to see it. And for those that want to just watch, an opportunity to de-stress and detach from our everyday Penn life that can be very hectic at times.
I totally get that, and one point that I love the most is that, I was in a bunch of clubs and, I wasn't completely invested in each one. It really took time for me to break into the club. And it was these smaller, club wide, not board member wide events that really got me into liking WUAC. And that's why I eventually became president. Speaking of which, that's probably the question I've been wondering the most. Why did you become president? It takes a lot of, gumption, I would say, to become a president. So why did you do it? And what were some of the hurdles that you didn't expect in becoming president? Let's start off with Caylen.
I was hoping I wasn't the one that started, but no. I would say that. So before I was president of UME, I was the head of communications. So I kind of was able to see the workflow of everything because I was the main liaison between all the members and all the people who weren't necessarily active members but were still on our email list, and the people organizing the events, and just anything going on in the club. So I think I was able to sort of, through osmosis and through the work I was doing, naturally get a sense of what it took. And, when it came time to apply and stuff like that, I talked a lot about how I just had a vision for really grounding us at the forefront of the Penn entertainment community, not just through our own events, but through what I've already mentioned, collabing with the cinema studies department and career services and other clubs and stuff like that. So that's kind of what led me to want the president role and kind of take that initiative. And it's definitely been a lot, but it's also been just very rewarding. And wait, you said what? Oh, sorry. Also, some hurdles. You said, what was a hurdle that I faced? I think, this is a hurdle that I faced, but it's also something that I'm so grateful for that's been sort of able to help me through internships and sort of jobs that I've done in what I consider the adult world. But I would say, being in a leadership position teaches you a lot of soft skills that you cannot really quantify. There's no GPA, there's no certification, there's no metric for just being good with people and for learning how to talk to people and sort of learning how to manage people, or trying to figure out the best way to connect people together or to get something done, common goal done. Because sometimes it's just the question of finding the right person as to whether something gets done or it doesn't get done. So that's something I didn't really consider, and I had gotten a taste of that in other leadership positions, but it really was on a different level whenever I was sort of running the show. And some of those lessons are things that are that I consider more valuable than some of the things I've learned in the classroom. So yeah.
I love what you did with that question because you're like, I also want you guys to mention, what are some skills and, you know, these little details that come with being president. So with that, Audrey, you're next. Like, not don't talk about just the hurdles. You're gonna have to talk
I
about the
know.
skills you learned as well.
Making it tough for me. So I actually kind of stumbled into Muse. I applied to a bunch of clubs my freshman fall, but I actually applied to Muse's social impact committee because I knew I was passionate about social impact. I was a business student. Let's see how they interact. Let's see what I can learn from this. And I think what struck me about Muse, I mean, Vivek, you mentioned that like it's very important to have that social aspect. I definitely felt that. And I think something that Muse gave me that not all the other clubs did is I was doing real tangible work as well. So I was able to say, this is what I did this semester, the project, the outcome, all of those things, which have been really helpful in terms of applications and interviews for internships and jobs as well. And I had a great experience, but I knew I wanted to move up. So one thing that's great about Muse is we have members, project leads, VPs, and then the presidents. So I really did work my way up. I had a great experience in social impact, wanted to try something new. So I decided to I applied. They accepted me, thankfully, to be the VP of external, just doing a lot with corporate relations, really rebranding that committee since it had fallen down a little bit because of COVID. And it felt for me that my logical next step was to be president. If you were to ask me 3 years ago, as a freshman, are you going to be president of Muse one day? I would say, probably not, just because I could have never imagined it. But truly, Muse has made my entire college experience. And I think being on board, really learning more about all that Muse does, I wanted to see, okay, what can I do? How can I make a change and difference, not just in my committee, but for Muse as a whole? What good can I do on Penn's campus and what can I give back? And so I think being president has really helped me achieve that with the new committee that we created. But obviously that's come with a lot of challenges. So Muse works differently. Our elections and presidencies are calendar year wise. So I was abroad for the first half as president, which meant my co and I not only had to handle, okay, well, how are we going to split up tasks? But also I had to see how am I going to establish myself as a leader when I'm halfway across the world. And some of these people don't really know who I am because they were on different committees beforehand. And obviously that was a tough adjustment. And at the beginning, when I came back, there definitely was not a power imbalance, but I noticed some people turning to my co more than me because they were like, she was gone for 4 months. Everything was fine. I don't think they necessarily knew all the background work that I was doing to ensure that. Thankfully, that hurdle has been jumped over. We're all good now. That's not an issue anymore. But I think kind of what Caylen was speaking about, it is really hard managing people. One of the issues I had was I was on board before. So there were, I think, 8 or 9 people returning on board who I considered some of my closest friends. And now I was in charge of them. So if there's ever something that went wrong, a deadline that was missed, rejections that had to be given out to some people who I really consider my close friends, that's obviously really hard and difficult. But I think it's worth it in the end because when you're working, you're not just going to be interacting with strangers. You are going to have these relations with people, and it's important that you're able to provide them feedback, have those tough conversations, and how you're going to protect their emotions and feelings and make sure that you're still in a healthy work environment for whatever's going forward. So I think that's something that I was really able to learn as president, and just to trust myself and don't be scared to ask for advice. So we're creating this new committee. It is new. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not embarrassed to say it. But we're asking feedback from our members, asking what they want, what they would like to see, how we can make it better for them. Because ultimately, as president, our role is not about us. Our role is about our board, members who joined any time in the last 4 years, or even members who want to join in the future. And we have to make sure that we're creating an experience that it doesn't die when we graduate, but it continues to live on and people still want to join our clubs. And I'll just be a blink, one of Muse's who knows how many presidents, but I need to make sure that I'm able to keep it going in a forward momentum and I'm able to improve Muse in the way that our members want. So they stay, they want to gain these leadership positions, and we have more members wanting to join every semester.
One, totally love the honesty. But two, love the point you made at the end. To lead is not just to, boss people around, but it's more so, knowing how to serve people. That's what I think leadership most of, like knowing that you have to serve the community, you have to serve your board members, you have to serve, in your case, your friends. So it's a huge responsibility. And who better than Eddie to talk more about this responsibility right now and the hurdles and skills that comes with it?
Yeah, so Wharton Retail, I think, was a very big club for me because, coming into and applying for Penn, I just started having an interest in the fashion retail industry, but I wasn't really sure what my place was. I was, a 17-year-old guy from, growing up in London, going to a business school. Retail didn't really fit in, and fashion didn't really fit in. But it seemed as though this club could have been the liaison between the two interests in my life. And so I was immediately attracted. I joined my freshman spring just because the fall was very difficult, especially because I was online. And I joined the consulting committee, but I think a big thing that I had with the club as a whole in my leadership process, I think, were two things. One, the committees, a lot of them were being redone. When I joined, we had just formed the consulting committee. So when I joined, I think there were only 4, 5 people. Now we're at 20 something. And the second thing was that COVID had hit. It had a massive impact on the retail industry. Our corporate sponsors, many of them couldn't, continue working with us in that realm. A lot of consulting was difficult to do because a lot of companies that either are startups that trust us had difficulty being able to stay up, or bigger companies had difficulty giving us the time for us to work with them. And so it was a moment that the club was sort of 50-50 on where to go and how to survive. And so I think that was something that really attracted me to leadership. I found this challenge, and I found myself someone who could help the club move forward and expand and make sure that when the world started getting back to normal, we were in the perfect position to take advantage of that moment and really bounce back. And it wasn't necessarily easy coming up because the consulting committee was very separate from all the other ones in the club. It was sort of a second branch, let's say. And so I didn't really know what was going on in the club as a whole until I was able to become vice president of the consulting committee. Only then did I really figure out what the other branches did and who they worked with. And so even then, in becoming president, I had challenges because I was the one that had to step in and show to the rest of the board members that though I did come up from the newer branch and the more separate one, it didn't mean that my experience was less valuable, or that that branch itself was any different from all of the other committees. But I think that taught me a couple of things. Firstly, it's the flexibility of being able to adapt and work with people, both within the club but also with clients. We had, for example, last year we worked with a very boutique coffee maker, and they were working on completely different times. They were fundraising, and so the flexibility for us in finding time to speak to them and being able to support them what they needed when their website crashed, being able to diagnose what happened, but also then recreate it with a more stable servers to make sure that things like that don't happen again. Make sure their social media is active and take off responsibility from them when they have to give important presentations for fundraising. And so the skills in working with people, kind of like Caylen said, but then also within the club, it's motivating people. What do you do when you're the head of a committee and you don't have people that necessarily are in exact moment that don't want to do much? You're approaching a break and people have a lot of exams and people are struggling, yet you have events that are coming up that you need to make sure are perfect and run smoothly. You have sponsors that want you to deliver on what you promised them. You have members that deserve to have their newsletter delivered to them and deserve to have this content for them. Yet at the same time, you have to respect the other people who are in the club. You are, as Wharton Retail, you are part of their life, but you're not everything that they have at Penn. Classes are massive. Social life is also massive. It's not fair to someone to tell them, no, you can't do any of this because you can only do Wharton Retail. It may be one of two, or one of three clubs that they may be in. So being able to focus in motivating them, yet understanding both their struggles and what is going on with client side and just the greater Penn community.
Love that response. One thing you do very well is, talking about how being a leader of this club actually prepares you for the real world. Everything you mentioned are like, these are all real world scenarios that, hey, I run into situations like this every day at work, and I really felt what you said. So like, great way to make a point on how clubs can prepare you for the real world. This is probably going to be the last question of today, but just to sum everything up, why do you think joining a club is important and critical in your college years? And what advice would you give to anybody who wants to join a club and become a leader like you? Let's start off with, don't worry, it's not you, Caylen. Let's start off with Edoardo, since you did such a great job.
So I would say a couple things for joining a club. Firstly, do something that you're interested in that may be a little bit outside the box. Being at Wharton, most people study finance, or the top two concentrations are finance, then business analytics. Neither of them necessarily have to do with retail. We are exploring the people that do a retail concentration, and it is much smaller than the people that are actually in the club. And so making sure that you may have these outside interests that aren't necessarily aligned with exactly what you're doing at university, but leaning into that and exploring that, because you might find connections that you didn't think of that actually resonate a lot more for you outside. You may find that, sure, you like business, but you also like creative hubs and creative jobs, and so working on the business side of those. And so I think that would probably be my first word of advice, and finding something that really interests you, not necessarily doing just the most competitive club or doing the club that has the biggest recognition, but doing the one that draws you to them the most. And my second one is having a drive and wanting to improve that club and seeing what is good, but what you can make better. Because all clubs in theory started equal. They all started at the same spot, but through tough work and dedication, some became the biggest clubs at certain universities, which means that any club has the opportunity to do it if you put enough work and enough dedication. So taking a club that even maybe small and maybe doesn't have the biggest recognition, but is a good fit for you and has a lot of space for you to grow as an individual and help the club grow. So I think those are my two main pieces of advice.
Love those points. Caylen, how about you?
Yeah, Eduardo touched upon really, I think the most important thing is really just choosing, because, I feel like, especially at Penn, like where the club culture is such like a thing, it's like everyone is like kind of eyeing like what clubs they should join, as opposed to like what clubs they just like want to. Like I said, it doesn't have to, as Eduardo said, like it doesn't have to be the most club or the one that you think would best like look good on your resume. It's sort of how you take advantage of it and sort of take the reins, and like you what you invest is what you get out of it. Both like in any club at Penn. And I think also not just in clubs, but also like in just the way that you conduct clubs, like joining clubs, and also how it serves like your academic and your professional interests too. It's like, just don't be afraid to like take a risk, like whether that's trying to start a new club, or whether it's trying to start a new initiative. Audrey was saying, talking about like some of the, the future's uncertain for like this new committee within MUSE. We're working on starting a film festival. It could totally fail. But like you gotta be not afraid to like take that risk. And I think it's something that is very easy. Like when you hear it, you think it's easy, but I think especially at a place like Penn, I think Penn's a place that's very risk averse, more risk averse than what people might think. So surround yourself around people who also fit with your vision. I think that it's incredibly hard, and Eduardo, again, I'm piggying off of something Eduardo said, but it's incredibly difficult when people check out or when people want to attach their name to something and people sound really down with an initiative that you want to start. Then when it gets time to do the hard work and really get knee deep into what requires getting that initiative off the ground, they kind of check out and are unavailable. And there's not as much like backing on it for them. But when you're the person, when you're the president, when you're running it, you can't just check out, because if you check out, then everything else crumbles and falls apart. So you have to find the people who are actually willing to put in the work and like help take that risk with you. And sometimes that requires like having really hard conversations. Like I've had conversations with people who are like very good with me, when at times to work with them and be a coworker with them, they might not really fit the situation. They might not be the best fit, and those conversations suck. But it's just like how it has to work sometimes.
Some great points being made. Like those, unfortunately, those hard conversations are inevitable. But another thing that I love is just, don't be afraid to take risks. I'm a huge fan of that. So shout out to you, Caylen. Thank you for that. And Audrey, how about you finish us off?
Sounds good. I think kind of what Caylen said, everyone at Penn is afraid to fail. And I know I obviously can't speak for the other panelists, but I personally applied, I want to say, to 6 or 7 clubs my freshman fall, just trying to see what stuck. I got rejected from the club I wrote my Why Penn essay about. I am doing fine. Like, it does not matter. You're going to face rejections. And I think we all can say that we have. And in terms of initially finding your club, MUSE, yes, we're a marketing club. I'm not going into marketing. My co is not going to marketing. Like, there are truly so many options. So I think when finding your club, first, cast a super wide net. We live in a competitive world right now. Everyone's really gunning for the same things. And it's important to just kind of see what's out there and what fits. One door closes, another door opens. Everyone will succeed in life, even if you get rejected from the club you wrote about. And so I think in terms of staying, you just need to find somewhere where you're actually doing tangible work and you feel like you are gaining real experiences. And a lot of panelists in our events and also in panels in my classes have said, it's time to move on when you feel like you're not being challenged anymore. And I'm sure Caylen and Eduardo can agree that they want to move on to that next role, VP and then president, because while they had a great experience, they want to be challenged more. They wanted to get some new experiences, learn some new skills that really only being a leader would be able to get them. And I do think everyone should, if they can, be a leader at some point, just because you are learning a lot, you're growing a lot. There are hard times. As Caylen mentioned, there are tough conversations to have, but it's all going to be worth it in the end. And one of the best things is I can, with full confidence at any job interview, whenever there's good team, bad team, event you plan, something went wrong, I can always find a story about being MUSE president, because so many things are thrown at you at once. You're always thinking on your feet, but you always have great stories to tell. And I think I truly have grown a lot, and I would not be the same person I am today if I wasn't MUSE president, ever a VP. And it's scary. You have to put yourself out there to be rejected. You have to apply for MUSE. We present to all of past boards. So I was a sophomore in my dorm room on Zoom talking to 20 people I've never seen before about why I should be VP of a committee that I wasn't even originally on, which took a lot of convincing. Negotiations, good class to take if it's offered at your university. But you're just gonna, you might fail, you might get rejected, but I think the benefits far outweigh the negatives and potential consequences. And it's going to have you're going to have that forever. You're going to have friends from it forever. And you're going to have those experiences, those skills that truly do help you in life, even if you can't see it now. I guarantee you there's going to be some bad thing that happens at work. And I'll be like, oh, okay, wait, I had to do this on a smaller scale with MUSE. I'll be fine. I don't know if that really answered the question, but that's my quick spiel about how to find your club and stick with it.
Well, that definitely answered the question. I'll tell you that right now. And yeah, if there's anything you learn, if you can take away from that, it's just like, don't be afraid of failure. I think failure helps us all grow. And especially me, like I got rejected from every single club I applied to first semester, and it sucked. I was like, what's going on here? But I'm happy where I ended up, and it's just, like accept failure and like grow from it. And I think that's just a fantastic note to end this amazing panel on. Let's give a hand to our amazing panelists. I can't see any of you, but give a hand regardless. And I can tell you right now, I have learned so much from you three, and I'm perhaps growing from it. And I'm sure that every audience is as I speak right now. So thank you so much to all the panelists showing up today. Thank you to Harsha for inviting us, and I'll give it back to the moderators to continue with the proceedings. Thank you, everyone, and bye. Have a great rest of your morning/night.
Thank you.